I want to look at the Defence Secretary's stuff this morning, John Healey's proposals. He says that what he's putting forward is the biggest shake-up of the UK defence in over 50 years. And this announcement comes at a critical juncture in our sort of global health, with conflicts in Ukraine, growing concerns over over NATO's future direction, and problems in the Middle East. And what his reforms entail, the reasoning behind them, and the potential impact is, I think, something that will merit a lot of thought, a lot of ink over the next few weeks. And Healy's address at the Institute for Government framed his proposals against a rapidly evolving security landscape. The UK's commitment to defence has remained steadfast, but according to Healey, it must now evolve further, and he acknowledged NATO's calls for increased European defence beyond 3% of GDP, and US Defence Secretary Pete Hegseth's warning that allies must do more is commendable. I don't think we should be thinking about a percentage of GDP. I think we should be thinking about what we need in order to defend ourselves. We should be thinking about it in a different way. But against this backdrop, the UK government has pledged to increase defence spending from 2.3% to 2.5% of GDP, with an immediate 3 billion boost this year. But spending alone is not enough, and the government's upcoming defence review, led by the former NATO Secretary General Lord Robertson, will provide a strategic roadmap for spending increases and reforms. And crucially, it must also address Conservative criticisms that Labour has been slow in detailing its defence commitments. But the Conservatives didn't do enough when they were in power either, so I don't think they have much of a leg to stand on. At the heart of Healey's proposal is a complete overhaul of the Ministry of Defence's command structure, and his reforms aim to streamline operations, cut waste, eliminate inefficiencies that have plagued UK defence spending for too long. Healey has proposed a quad leadership team consisting of the Chief of Defence Staff, the Permanent Secretary, the National Armaments Director, and the Chief of Defence Nuclear. And this group will be responsible for war fighting readiness, deterrence, and procurement, an area long criticised for delays and bureaucratic inertia. Currently, it takes an average of 6 years for a major defence programme to reach contract. Healey has been scathing about the excessive layers of oversight, revealing that in procurement alone, 11 checkers exist for every decision maker. The reform intends to put decision making back in the hands of military experts rather than in the impenetrable web of bureaucracy. And frankly, other ministries should take note of what he's proposing, particularly the Home Office, because this is the sort of root and branch reform that is badly needed. One of the more controversial aspects of Healey's announcement is the decommissioning of ageing military assets. HMS Albion, HMS Bulwark, 2 amphibious assault ships are being retired. Type 23 frigate HMS Northumberland, considered beyond economic repair, will also be scrapped. The Watchkeeper drone fleet, 14 Chinook helicopters and RAF Puma helicopters will also be withdrawn. I don't agree in scrapping stuff that can still work, because at this moment we need everything we can lay our hands on. Critics argue that precisely at this time of increased security, reducing military hardware sends the wrong message. But Healey contends that these assets are no longer fit for purpose, and that the savings, projected at £10 billion over the next decade, will be reinvested over next generation military capabilities. Beyond military readiness, Healey envisages a more efficient, economically beneficial defence sector, and the defence industrial strategy launched last December underpins this approach, with a greater focus on domestic defence manufacturing, strengthening the UK's supply chain in critical industries such as semiconductors and steel, reducing foreign dependence, ensuring that Britain can sustain military operations independently at times of crisis, and boosting economic efficiency. And Healey has likened this vision to creating a FTSE 100 company within the MOD to maximise defence's economic contribution. This is where the National Armaments Director, this is where that role becomes pivotal. The NAD will oversee procurement, cutting through red tape to ensure rapid and cost-effective acquisitions of essential equipment. Labour's defence policy has often been scrutinised, with critics pointing to historical tensions between the party's left and more centrist figures on military matters, but Healey's speech signals an assertive stance, reinforcing Labour's commitment to NATO and to international security. And notably, Prime Minister Starmer has not ruled out the possibility of UK troops being deployed to Ukraine, whether Putin likes it or not, under any future peacekeeping deal. But he has stressed that any deployment must have the full European backing and the security guarantees of the United States. My own instinct is that he should have kept his mouth shut until there was more substance to what's being discussed at the moment. And the Ukraine issue is particularly relevant as European nations grapple with the implications of President Donald Trump's apparent pivot away from NATO, and Healey's announcement therefore comes just as Starmer prepares to meet Trump to discuss Britain's role in Ukraine as a peace deal, an engagement that could have major ramifications for European defence cooperation. While Healey's reforms are ambitious, they're not without controversy. There are funding shortfalls. The Ministry of Defence faces a £7 billion shortfall in procurement spending, and Healey has not yet outlined how these reforms will bridge the gap beyond efficiency savings. And retiring assets such as warships and helicopters may free up some resources, but it also risks reducing the UK's operational flexibility, and critics argue that Britain should be expanding, not contracting, reducing its defence capabilities in the light of the heightened global tensions. Healey's attack on excessive bureaucracy is refreshing and something I've been waiting to hear from a minister for a very long time, but whether entrenched systems within the MOD and further afield will truly change remains to be seen. John Healey's proposals mark a bold attempt to modernise and streamline British defence in an increasingly volatile world, and his pledge to increase defence spending to 2.5% of GDP, coupled with structural reforms to command, to procure and to ensure better industrial strategy, signals a decisive shift towards more agile, economically efficient and strategically focused defence policy. However, success will depend on effective implementation. If these reforms deliver as promised, the UK could emerge stronger, with a defence sector that's both combat ready and economically sustainable. If not, Labour could face serious political backlash over what some may perceive as defence cuts rather than true reform. For now, Britain stands at a crossroads in its military strategy. The challenge ahead is not just to spend more, but to spend smarter, a goal that, if achieved, could reshape UK defence for decades to come.